Okay, I think you're where you want to be, right? You could be somewhere else. Thank you for being here. I'm Phil Yanov, and first, I would like to thank Jim Cialella. Look at this. Look at you in this group of people. This is awesome that he can build a campfire and you show up. Now, he does it with good food and good natured and all the rest, which is awesome. But I'm glad that you are here. And I would like for us to give a round of applause to my pal Jim for pulling this off. I cannot tell you, can you hear me or you can't hear me? But are they, do you amplify this?
Would you like to be amplified?
You can amplify it if you'd like. I'm good with that. You do as you need to do. Because this is all the speaking voice I've got. You do not know how hard, wow, that's weird. Okay, you do not know how hard I worked to not be here. And when I say to not be here, I don't mean to not be here tonight, but to like not be in this space at all, doing this thing. I was a few years ago in some spot and some guy asked me about what I did. And I talked to him a little bit and he comes back to me and he says, "So you're an event planner?" And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, this is the worst. One time a guy was taking my photo for something and he said, "You're an influencer." I thought, oh, I failed again. This is not what I want to do. But I'm going to tell you what it is I did want to do and how did we get started with this thing that we call Tech After 5. So let me tell you first, I am Phil Yanov. I run Tech After 5. Tech After 5 is the culmination of a bunch of other things. But in March, we will have our 730th live and in-person event, right? So that doesn't include all of our online events that we do and all of that other stuff. But over the last, and by the way, this very week, which I am standing here, is our 18th birthday for Tech After 5. Michael Mino will tell you that if I will ask people all the time, they'll like try to figure out what their business is, what do they want to do for a living, and I'll say, what could you imagine yourself doing for 10 years or 20 years? What do you think that might be? And I'm trying to get them to focus a little bit. And then they'll look back at me and say, well, what would you do? And I said, I'm 15 years in. That's how I got to be where I am, right? I just kept at it. So what am I trying to do here? Why did we do this at all? So again, Tech After 5 started in, oh, do we remember? 2008. You probably did the math for me just a second ago. 2008. That was a great year, right? I mean, everything was swell. I started so much stuff in 2008. And I was just having coffee with somebody this morning. I said to him, I think it was a good plan. I said two things. I started in 2008 because people needed us. What we were doing, people needed to get done. And I'll explain that in just a second. And the other thing is, when times are tough, you have to act lean. I couldn't spend money I didn't have. I wasn't making money off of what I was doing. And so I had to like figure out how to make this as lean as possible. And that kept me from making a whole bunch of mistakes in the beginning when I started Tech After 5. Now, let me tell you too, Tech After 5, Olivia, am I okay or should I stand still? I might not be able to stand still. Okay, all right, she's good. So when I started this, someone came to me. Let me just say this first. By the way, it may not come across to you, I am an introvert. I am also an introvert with coping skills. And that's the only way I've gotten as far along as I've gotten in this. And that is, given my druthers, I would be home reading a book or doing some other thing because that's how I build energy. I read and I write and I really enjoy doing all that. The thing is, I only figure out how to find my way through the world by interacting with other people. Now, I'm wondering if anybody here can identify with me on just that bit, right? I'm an introvert. However, I cannot figure out how to make money by just sitting at home, right? I can sit on Animal Crossing all day and it just doesn't seem to convert to real cash. Okay. Tech After 5. I was running the GSATC lunch. Now, just wind the clock back. I started that in 2002. GSAT came out of another organization. I'm not even going to say its name. And then before that, there was yet another organization this is really where it gets scary for those of you who look so young inside this room. My first organization, my first networking group, professional group that I created in Greenville was the Upstate IBM PC Users Group, which we created in 1983. Yeah, I did that for 15 years, right? So I did that off and on for 15 years. And when I say off and on, we'd elect a different president, and I was president about half of the time for those first 15 years. But I met and created a bunch of friends, and that was kind of cool. And it was really quite successful organization, but we'll set that aside. So then I did another thing, and then I decided to do the GSATC lunches because I wanted to help professionals. That was what I wanted to get. I was myself a professional. My day job during this was I was the we called it the e-business executive for a company called Kairos Corporation. We were the world's largest reseller of IBM point-of-sale equipment, and it was right here in Greenville. Which then became Kairos, right? Did I say it was Mid-South when I started? It was Kairos when I left, and it became something that begins with the letter P after I was gone, but I can't remember. Pomeroy after I left, yeah. So all of that happened while I was there. But anyway, we created this. So I, by the way, liked the lunches. And I say this because I think the lunches did something important. When I created this event, I said, we'll get a bunch of people together, we'll have lunch together, we'll charge for lunch, not a lot, enough to cover and pay my bills, but I will then have a speaker up front. But the neat thing about this is I can every month bring someone smart, somebody capable, somebody who's got something interesting and entrepreneurial going on inside of our space and let them talk to us. Because I was under the impression at this time, you cannot imagine this, but I was under the impression at the time that we were not celebrating entrepreneurship enough. And I wanted local entrepreneurs to be up there speaking. I wanted local tech people who'd done good to be up there speaking. And so we did that. So the neat thing about this was we did this for 6 years prior to Tech After 5. But when we did this, people would say, Phil, we need a networking event. Now, I don't know. We already admitted that some of us are introverts. I was an introvert. I thought most networking sucks, right? And it sucks because you don't have good conversations. You can't get people to talk. And I really was against the idea of walking around the room with a drink in my hand with no idea of what it was I was going to do. However, in the GSATC, I'd created an advisory board. And the advisory board came to me and said, you need to have an after-hours networking event. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And so the next month, they'd come back and say, you need to have an after-hours networking event. And I go, yeah, I don't want to do that. And so this is terrible. Do not picture this. But I thought, how could I make something that was different than what everybody else was doing? Not just wandering around with a beer in your hand, hoping for something to happen. I was in the shower. Stop. You can laugh now. This is it. It's true. I was in the shower. And don't do it. I was in the shower and I said, how can I make this different? I mean, my head had been working through this again and again. How could I make something that was different? And so my initial idea was, and I drew this with my finger on the wall of the shower, was we would not just have a name badge with your name on it, we would have what you were looking for. What was it that would help you move the ball forward in what you were doing? And I said, it is networking with intentionality, right? It's not just who are you, but what are you trying to get done? So maybe I could help. And it worked. So I came back and I said, let's go do this. I messed around. I tried all sorts of things. I made it complicated for the first 3 months. I was really worried that it wasn't going to work. And then, poof, it just took off. And so we created the event here. We'd have 100 and change in there. The events were free to attend in the beginning. And then in fact, the only reason I ever changed it from free to attend to pay to attend was because I would have 300 people sign up for these events in Greenville, right? We would be down here at one of these bars, but we'd have 300 people sign up for the event. Now I'd only get 150 and maybe 200 through the door. But the thing is, we'd have so many people. I was like, and I personally didn't like the events anymore because I couldn't get to talk to everybody. It was too big. There was too much going on, and they weren't. That's me making that noise, isn't it? Okay. I was like, I heard this little crunch. No, it's this one, isn't it?
No, it's this one. Oh, no, it is the other one.
I promised you, because this one doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't button my jacket. Come on. Yeah. Okay. All right. You should have said something before. Okay.
I'm gonna fix this. Hold it like an alpha.
I'm not going to hold it like an influencer. Stop it, you back in the back. So, anyway, then this thing was, how can we do this? So we do it, the name badge is different, and then the thing built. And it just took off. So the crazy thing about that was, I was having some success here, and I had a guy, who was first? I think Charleston was first. No, Columbia was first. Jim Stritzinger came to Tech After 5. He'd come every month. We would have the event at Barley's Tap Room. Jim Stritzinger would come down every month. Jim said, Jim walked up to me, and you may remember this is when he was just out of SCRA and all the rest, but Jim had come to me and he said, this is the best networking event in the state of South Carolina. And I said, Jim, I appreciate the sunshine, but stop. I mean, that's really nice. He goes, no. He said, I live in Charleston. I book my appointments around your event. He said, so I see people the day before, I come up here, I go to your event, I stay overnight, and then the next day I have breakfast with somebody, and then I go back to Charleston. This is how I do it. I thought, oh, okay, that's really cool. Anyway, Jim decided to take a job with a company in Columbia, South Carolina. They were going to launch something new. And he said, we need tech out. So he comes to me and he says, this is being recorded. I have to think about how I want to say this. But he says, we want to do this in Columbia, South Carolina. Now, I, at that time, was of the opinion that I never wanted to step foot in Columbia, South Carolina. But Jim wanted us to be in Columbia. And so I said, no, I don't want to do that. He goes, yeah, we're going to do it. I said, okay. I said, it sounds expensive, so I put out a price. And so I learned that when you do something, if you don't want to do it, you multiply the price by 4. That's the way you do it. So I multiplied the price by 4. Jim looked at me and said, done. Damn. Here we go. So in 6 weeks, we launched Tech After 5 in Columbia. We had 123 people at that very first event. And I had people in Columbia walking up to me going, how did you do this? We've been trying to do this for years, and we'll get 12 people to show up. And I think, there's a technique, there's a formula that I think we can build in getting a whole bunch of people in the room. So anyway, we did that. We did Columbia, then we did Charleston, South Carolina, and I thought, I have done what Karen St. John had said needed to be done in the beginning, which was we needed to tie these all together. That's for one guy in the room. You remember Karen saying we needed to tie it together, and I thought, like a string of pearls, I thought my work here is done. Pam Wessel walks into my office with Tim Martin, and Tim Martin says, we want to take this to Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm like, that sounds like a lot of work. I upped the price. And of course, he said yes. And poof, then we went to Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay, it just keeps going. So we did Charlotte, North Carolina, then we'd have other cities come. We did Atlanta for a year. We did, prior to COVID, a guy walks up to me at Tech After 5 in Greenville and says, this is awesome. I want to do this in Bangalore, India. I am definitely not commuting to Bangalore, India on a regular basis. And I was like, no way. He comes back a year later and says, no, we really want to do this in Bangalore. So we did it in Bangalore, and we ran it there up through COVID. Here's the deal. COVID comes, this thing breaks. The whole thing breaks because you can't have meetings in public and all of that kind of stuff. And I ended up doing something else. And I ended up doing online events and all of that kind of work. But we've had great success. Jim, right here, right now, is having great success in putting people in the room. You know, we've recovered, right? We are doing Charleston, South Carolina. We do Charlotte, North Carolina. We're also in, obviously we have in Greenville, South Carolina. We'll be back in March for our anniversary event and launch that again. So anyway, we've got all of that going. I don't know why you're listening to me. It was fun. I had a great ride. We've done some really cool things. I think there's even bigger and cooler stuff to come. But what I really hope that you take away from this is that if you look at me, you go, that's Phil Yanov. And don't forget, I've had people say this to me at my very events. He doesn't look like much. He's not much, but I am passionate about being good to the audience. How can I help people figure out how to get connected with each other? So either I'm connecting them with ideas or I'm connecting them to each other, but I've never fallen out of love with the audience. And so when COVID came, we started doing online events. I've had crazy success in doing online events, but I still think the magic is doing this face-to-face, in person, whether it's a group of 3 people, 5 people, a dozen, or more. I want you to go off and do that thing. And that's my 15 minutes. Thank you so much for having me.